Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a look at some extremely fun battles in the Great League featuring a very spicy MEW moveset. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Young Petro, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now MEW typically runs something like Surf and Wild Charge, but this MEW is opting for Ice Beam and Focus Blast, and oh my goodness, so many Pokemon do not respect the Focus Blast. It goes without saying, MEW definitely more of a pick for fun than for climbing, but man, it looks like a lot of fun here. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. Hopping to the first match, picking up an amazingly Dugong into Shadow Dragonite. We actually see a simultaneous save switch here, save switching the Annihilape, understanding the opponent would look to immediately save switch out. So now the Annihilape ends up in extremely favorable alignment going up against Registeel. The Zap Cannon is shielded, it does get the debuff, Annihilape farming up, getting as much energy as it possibly can, going a little bit over 100 as it fires off the Shadow Ball, and Shadow Ball will pick up the knockout onto Registeel. Back in comes the Shadow Dragonite, but Shadow Dragonite is going to have to deal with double super effective Ice Punches. Even though they're debuffed, it's still going to guarantee the shields from the Dragonite. Firing off yet another Ice Punch, opponent is going to have to give up this final shield if they want to protect the Dragonite, and they do. Annihilape continuing to farm up here. Annihilape cannot get the farm down. In comes Dugong. Dugong can survive a superpower, so we will see a no shield as the Dragonite full sends the superpower, and in the back, it's a Bastiodon. And Bastiodon, at this moment, might be thinking to itself, you know what? I can survive a bunch of surfs, but this is not your ordinary MEW. That is a Focus Blast, massive damage onto the Bastiodon. Bastiodon able to make one final charge attack here. It is going to be the Stone Edge, and we see the shield by MEW as MEW gets the farm down. In comes the Dragonite. Dragonite forced to throw energy here as the Dragonite is just running out of HP. The Dragon Claw picks up the knockout, but one Ice Shard from the Dugong is able to secure the win. Picking up a tough lead in the next match, now leading Dugong, but unfortunately it's being led into Defense Deoxys. We're going to see a save switch into MEW, and the opponent is staying in here with the Deoxys. They farm up so much energy, and oh my goodness, they send in Guzzlord. Do they respect the damage? They do not. Get that Guzzlord out of here. Back in comes the Deoxys, but the opponent lost an entire Pokemon. They got zero value out of it. The Thunderbolt doesn't even KO, and the MEW wins charge attack priority as it makes it to the Ice Beam. Ice Beam into the Deoxys will be no shielded, and just like that, MEW is basically KO'd two full health Pokemon. They go for the Psycho Boost. The Psycho Boost does not even pick up the knockout. In comes the Dugong, and we'll never find out what they had in the back as they resign the match. Moving into the next match, hitting Dugong into Whiscash. Opponent is staying in, which is very, very nice, as this is a commanding lead for Dugong. The Whiscash fires out the charge attack as soon as they get it. This does give 2 free turns to the Dugong, as it was slightly inefficient timing. Dugong is going to fire off the Icy Wind. That's going to connect. Opponent is going to reset the debuff, save switch into Abomasnow, but Abomasnow cannot be happy to see what greets it as Annihilape enters the field. This is an Icy Wind Abomasnow, so they are going to get to it every 6 Powder Snows. Annihilape farming up, going for the Ice Punch on charge attack priority to Icy Wind number 2. This Ice Punch is debuffed, but it still does get the shield from the opponent. Annihilape could go for a shield in the counter down, but instead opting to let this go and might go for an aggressive play here, trying to get some farm on the MEW. In comes the MEW. MEW is going to take advantage of the fact that Icy Wind does have slower pacing. Opponent is going to send in Trevenant, and now the Focus Blast not as useful here, but it is Ice Beam time. That does massive damage. In comes the Whiscash. And Whiscash, I mean, it is just not beating this Dugong at this point. They can go for the Mud Bomb, that gets shielded. The opponent just does not have a way out here. They're down on energy. They're down on health. The Dugong just continuing to chip away at the Whiscash. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Decent lead in the next match, Dugong into Azumarill. Despite the fact that Dugong's main moves here, the Ice Shard and the Icy Wind, are resisted, I honestly don't mind being Dugong in this matchup, because you can fire off the Icy Wind. I do like how Young Petro is playing this, where you go for the Icy Wind first. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it applies a very important debuff that should allow Dugong to actually flip this by going for drill runs from here on out, as the play rough just does absolutely nothing. So Dewgong able to put in a lot of work, even in a matchup where it doesn't necessarily seem like it would be the greatest. They can fire off yet another play rough, and Dewgong actually choosing to save the energy, save switch into Mew. Opponent is going to send in the Trevenant, and the Trevenant might be expecting that standard set of Surf and Wild Charge, but guess what, trainer? It's an Ice Beam, and that picks up the KO. Now that they've seen Ice Beam, they might be more inclined to send it back in the Azumarill since they know it's a less than typical set, and that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to send in the Azumarill. Azumarill fires off energy, and as the Mew, this is a very comfortable no shield, as you know your charge attacks are really not going to be threatening the Azu. Mew, nevertheless, is able to make it to the Focus Blast. This is resisted, but Focus Blast will definitely leave a mark. And now you could potentially send in the Annihilate. The opponent will be able to make it to a charge attack, but not going to let that happen. Banking the energy, sending in the Dewgong. Icy Wind will pick up the knockout if they decide to no shield, which they do. And in the back is Medicham. And Medicham is about to face its worst nightmare. The new top fighter, Annihilate, just completely destroys Medicham. Even if they have Psychic, Psychic doesn't come close to knocking out. And their counters just do absolutely nothing here. So Annihilate, these counters actually doing some decent damage on the Medicham and can just spam out ice punches. Medicham, they can fire off energy, but it's really not going to matter. Medicham is actually running Psychic, but with 2 shields to hide behind, a debuff, and the fact that Psychic doesn't even knock out here, Annihilate completely in the driver's seat of this match. Opponent is going to bait with the Ice Punch, but Annihilate showing why Medicham basically isn't ever used anymore, as it's just able to completely dominate this matchup. Over farming, looks like playing to charge attack priority as well, as Ice Punch into the Medicham is going to secure the game. We see a familiar lead in the next match, Dewgong into Whiscash, but this time it is the Shadow Whiscash. So now we'll get a little bit of a side-by-side comparison, that previous match to this new one, in terms of the damage output from the Shadow Whiscash compared to the regular. The Mud Bomb is going to land, and that puts Dewgong pretty close to half HP. So the Shadow Whiscash damage output is no joke. Going to be firing off the Icy Wind, that's going to connect. Opponent save switches into a Wigglytuff, and Wigglytuff is a problem for the backline. There's Mew, which his fast move is double resisted, and there's Annihilate, which is taking super effective damage. Looks like it'll be charge attack priority here. Opponent, oh man, the Dewgong's low enough that they can just Icy Wind here. They can go for the Disarming Voice. I mean, the moves do cost the same, but in my view, the Icy Wind makes a bit more sense just in case the opponent does shield, then you can get a debuff. Annihilate gets a farm down, pays a heavy price. That is so much damage taken. And the opponent here, are they going to send in the Whiscash? No, they're going to send in their final Pokemon, and the opponent is running double Charm. You hate to see it. And it's Shadow Alolan Ninetales as well, so unfortunately the Ice Beam is not very useful here. So this is looking very, very dire for the Mew. Mew is going to commit the shield as the Weather Ball is thrown. Opponent switches out into the Shadow Whiscash, and just like that, in the blink of an eye, Mew goes from 2 shields to 0. Mew farming up, firing off the Ice Beam, going for an undercharge on the Ice Beam to the Whiscash. That undercharge, oh, it's just too much of an undercharge. The Whiscash able to hang on, make it to the Mud Bomb, and unfortunately, it's all over for the Annihilate as Alolan Ninetales gets that farm down. Dewgong picking up a ton of great leads, as now it is going to be leading into Diggersby. And this is a commanding matchup for the Dewgong. Dewgong farming up. Opponent tries to go for a catch onto a Powder Snow Alolan Ninetales, and they are so weak to a Dewgong lead. Deciding to go for the Icy Wind bait here, opponent is going to no shield, going for yet another Icy Wind. Is the opponent going to put up a shield this time? They do not, they keep no shielding, but even though the moves were no shielded, that's still 2 stages of attack drop. So when they go for the Dazzling Gleam here, that doesn't do a whole lot to the Dewgong. Dewgong is able to withstand that damage, and now Dewgong is going to go for some harder hitting damage with the Drill Run. The Drill Run is going to connect. That is going to pick up the knockout, and down goes Ninetales. Opponent still does have that Diggersby, and Diggersby banks some energy. In comes Lantern. Lantern is going to be hit with another Icy Wind bait. 2 Icy Wind baits have been no-shielded so far. The opponent no-shields a third. They refuse to shield. The Dewgong has to go for the Drill Run here. It's not quite able to get there, as before it does, we see the Surf fired by the Lantern to pick up the knockout. In comes Mew. Opponent sends in Diggersby. Diggersby can fire off a Scorching Sands here. This will do some very solid damage. Does he get the debuff? No, it does not. Mew continuing to farm, going for the Ice Beam. Ice Beam will hit for super effective damage here. Is the opponent going to respect it? They do. They commit the shield, choosing to let the Mew go and trusting in Annihilate to try and win the game. In comes Annihilate. Annihilate just going to look to get a massive amount of energy here. Diggersby firing off a charge attack. We see the shield on the Scorching Sands, and the Scorching Sands debuff does come through. That's very clutch for the opponent, as they're going to be able to survive the counters and make it to one final charge attack. It is going to be another Scorching Sands and another debuff, and now the Annihilate at -2. If it was at a full attack stat, this would be looking a lot better. But at -2, that Shadow Ball is not enough to knock out. Annihilate committing the shield as Lantern fires off the Surf. Annihilate going for the Ice Punch. Switch Clock will be up soon, but I don't think the Mew is making it to a charge attack. It might come down to Annihilate getting to a move, and it does not get there. The Lantern is going to pick up the knockout with the Surf. In comes the Mew, and the Mew just runs out of HP. We've got some crazy spice on the lead in the next match from the opponent, leading Dugong into a Shadow Girafarig. This Girafarig is running Confusion, and the combination of Confusion and Psychic Fangs can be quite deadly. That was only 3 Confusions, that's not enough for a Thunderbolt, but the Psychic Fangs is going to add up and make these future Confusions do more damage until the Dugong switches out. Icy Wind will be shielded by the Girafarig. Dugong continuing to farm. That's perfect charge attack timing this time by the opponent. Dugong is going to no-shield. The Psychic Fangs barely does not KO. In comes the Mew. These Shadow Claws are single resisted due to that very cool typing on the Shadow Girafarig. No shielding as Girafarig goes for the Psychic Fangs. They're now going to send in Lantern. Lantern going to be met with a Focus Blast. They've already shielded once. I don't think they're going to be shielding here, which means the Focus Blast gets to land. That does big damage. Opponent firing off energy. Mew has done its job. It got the Lantern into a much more usable health range here for the Annihilate to counter down. And now in comes the Annihilate. Annihilate, one of the deadliest Pokemon in the format with an energy advantage. And now it gets the traded shield advantage for energy as it counters down the Lantern. Exiting with a lot of stored energy. Opponent sends in the Girafarig. They just get countered down. In the back, it's Gligar. And Gligar, it's all over for the opponent, as there's just too much energy on the Annihilate. The Ice Punch connects. We're going to see Ice Punch number 2 forcing the shield. And then there's an Icy Wind stored. So we're going to see a combo play into the Dugong. The opponent brings in the Gligar, and it just gets absolutely crushed under a barrage of charge attacks. Moving into the next match, sending Dugong into Galarian Stunfisk. Dugong does have the ability to flip this, but it is definitely a bit of an awkward matchup at even energy, as of course Stunfisk does have a pretty big pacing advantage. Perfect charge attack timing here from the Stunfisk. Stunfisk is going to be firing off the Rock Slide. We see the shield from the Dugong. Dugong going to farm up. Instead of going for an Icy Wind, opting to go for the Drill Run. Opponent probably going to be no shielding here no matter what. The Drill Run does some pretty nice damage. Going to farm up, try and go for a catch onto the Annihilate. Annihilate, unfortunately, unable to catch the Rock Slide. In comes a Azumarill, and this is definitely looking like a tough game. Firing off the Shadow Ball. The Shadow Ball is going to connect onto the Azu. Continuing to farm up, choosing to go for the Ice Punch. Let's check. How well does the opponent know their Annihilate counts? They know them. They know that cannot be the Shadow Ball, so they are just going to no shield. And Annihilate is going to be hit with the Play Rough, and then picks up the knockout. Back in comes Dugong. Dugong, unfortunately, looks like got one turn bring in there, so does not get the Ice Shard sneak as the Play Rough lands, which is very, very unfortunate. Dugong going to look to double up on charge attacks. Drill Run will easily pick up the knockout. The opponent has so much energy on the Galarian Stunfisk, which is definitely going to be a problem, as they have a shield advantage as well. Are they going to be sending in the Stunfisk? Yes, they are. Going for the bait here, going for the Icy Wind. The threat of a Drill Run should be enough to grab a shield from the opponent, and it does. We now see the switch into Mew. In the back, the opponent has Tropius. Okay, Ice Beam's moment to shine here. Firing off the Ice Beam, double super effective damage. It connects. Tropius able to make a last-second charge attack. But man, that Ice Beam comes in clutch for the Mew. The Mew able to get the farm down. Back in comes the Galarian Stunfisk. I believe a Rock Slide will not knock out here, so I like the no shield. The Rock Slide doesn't knock out, and the Mew makes the Ice Beam. Maybe there is hope. The Mew is going to be able to grab the final shield with the Ice Beam. Unfortunately, oh man, that Stun Fist gets such a big farm. Opponent throws on alignment. We will see the shield from the Dugong. I believe a Rock Slide, this is going to be close. Is a Rock Slide going to be enough to knock out? The Dugong has taken a lot of hits throughout the course of this match. This is not debuffed. The Rock Slide does not pick up the KO, and the game ends in a tie. These matches were a lot of fun, so thank you so much to Young Petro for submitting them. It was really nice to see someone thinking outside the box with the Mew moveset, and honestly, it looks like it put in some pretty decent work. The surprise factor, catching some opponents off guard, especially that Bastiodon getting destroyed by the Focus Blast. Oh, that was absolute perfection. And then towards the end, we saw the Ice Beam putting in quite a lot of work. A couple Trevenants, and of course, in that end game there, the Tropius taking double super effective damage. So, thinking outside the box, and hey, it looks like it did end up paying some pretty nice dividends with running that very strong, very staple meta core of the Annihilate plus the Dugong to back it up. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.